This is the time of year whenever everyone is trying to make a comeback. And before I tell you what I mean, I got to tell you what I don't mean. You see, I take inspiration for messages from wherever I can find it. Obviously from the Bible and books about the Bible, but from other sources too, like Google. And so, whenever I Googled this week how to make a comeback, I was surprised by the top results that I found. In fact, in light of what we actually are going to spend the next 7 weeks talking about, I was a little bit horrified at the type of results that I found. Because do you know what sort of comeback that Google wanted me to make, apparently? It's the sort of comeback where you return insult for insult. It's the sort of comeback where you try to win an argument by putting another person down and lifting yourself up. That's the sort of comeback that was at the top of Google's algorithm. Now, if you want to make that sort of comeback, I suggest that you do your own research. I feel like there are enough of those sort of comebacks going on out there. We need to be a different sort of people. Now, what we're going to talk about in this season as we move into the new year is in making a comeback in the sense of being new people, in maybe getting back to something that we have done before. Maybe we need to go on a rebound. Maybe we need to revive a certain practice in our life that we have done before. Or maybe we need to start something completely new. We need just a full life transformation. I would suspect that at least some aspect of your life needs a comeback. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about as we journey on throughout January and February. But before we move on with that, I've got to acknowledge that today is a holiday. Do you know what holiday it is? It's Dating Sunday. That's whenever apparently there are more singles, hopefully singles, on dating websites than any other day of the year. It's the Sunday following the holidays. I don't know, that's when everybody gets together and decides that they want to get on those apps. But we are in the church, and this is also a church holiday as well. Do you know what that holiday is? It's called Baptism of the Lord Sunday. You see, we tell the story of Jesus' entry into the world on Christmas. And then on the Sundays following that one, we tell the stories of baby Jesus. We tell the stories of baby Jesus being visited by Magi who traveled from Walt Disney World to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or at least an equivalent distance. And we also tell the stories of the Magi warning the family of baby Jesus that they need to get out of there because Herod is coming after them. So we tell the stories of the Holy Family fleeing to Egypt. We tell the stories of baby Jesus being dedicated in the temple, and we even tell the story of boy Jesus being lost. What a story that is. They're able to make it from Bethlehem, possibly to Jerusalem to get dedicated in the temple, all the way down to Egypt, and then back up to Nazareth, and then back to Jerusalem again, only to lose Jesus then. Not in any of the travels, but while they're in one particular city. Also, can you imagine what that prayer was like? If you're a parent and if you've ever lost a child, even if you aren't a person who prays very regularly, I'm sure that you were praying very hard in that moment. But could you imagine what that prayer sounded like? Hey, God, it's us, Mary and Joseph. We lost you. And so we're through those stories of baby Jesus and boy Jesus, and we fast forward about 18 years, from about 12 till about 30. There's nothing in between, at least according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I'm sure Jesus was doing, some amazing stuff in those moments as well. But we fast forward to adult Jesus. That's the next story that we've got of him, and it's the story of his baptism. Here's how Matthew tells that story. At that time, Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan River so that John would baptize him. John tried to stop him and said, I need to be baptized by you, yet you choose to come to me? Jesus answered, allow me to be baptized now. This is necessary to fulfill all righteousness. So John agreed to baptize Jesus. When Jesus was baptized, he immediately came up out of the water. Heaven was opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God coming down like a dove and resting on him. A voice from heaven said, this is my Son, whom I dearly love. I find happiness in him. What a story. What a short little story. It's truly a king's anointing. First, Jesus goes through the ritual of purification in baptism, even though he didn't have anything to be purified from. And then he's anointed by the Holy Spirit. And maybe most importantly is this divine affirmation, a voice from heaven saying, this is my Son, whom I dearly love. I find happiness in him. What a divine affirmation from God the Father to God the Son. A reminder that even though things were about to get to be very challenging for Jesus, that he was deeply loved by God, his Father. You know, it reminds me of another story, a story that Jesus would tell later on in his ministry. Jesus told a lot of stories. He mainly told parables. Parables illustrate the point that a story can be true without necessarily being true. What I mean by that is that it can illustrate a deeper truth without having to have complete factual truth, because it's a story that gets down to this deeper truth better than just saying the point ever could. And so Jesus tells this one particularly poignant story, this story of a father and his two sons. You can read it later, you can read it now if you want, from Luke 15, verses 11 to 32, but let me tell it to you. You see, there was this father who had two sons. And the one son, the older son, he was pretty great. He always did everything that his dad asked him to do. He never argued with him. He never tried to insert his own opinions. Some said that he had a tendency to kiss up to his father, but at least from the father's perspective, he sure seemed like the ideal son. I mean, like, this guy never, ever did anything wrong. At least he was the ideal son in comparison to his brother, because this good son had a younger brother, and he was a bit of a troublemaker. They started to see it at a young age in how he would interact with his brother and how he would interact with his parents, but it really came to a head whenever he became an adult. You see, this younger brother was a bit impatient. Wise, or at least smart, but definitely impatient. You see, he was smart enough to realize that his dad was pretty wealthy. He had a lot of assets, and one day, a lot of that would be coming to him. But again, his impatience got in the way. And he said, geez, this dad of mine is just living a little bit too long. I'm never going to get to have my stuff and what I want to do with it. So he goes up to his dad boldly and says, Dad, I wish you were dead. But since you're not dying quickly enough, here's what I want you to do. I want you to tally up all your assets, like a lawyer would do whenever you're dead, and I want you to divide up those assets, because I don't have all day here. I want to have my fun now. And so, as I was alluding to, that younger brother, he didn't have in mind to take those assets and to invest them. No, he didn't have that in mind, and he also didn't have in mind to build something with all of that wealth that he was inheriting early from his father. Rather, instead of all that, he just wanted to have fun. So he packed up all of his stuff and he went to the far away place called Atlantic City. And there in Atlantic City, he was able to do all of the things that the United Methodist Rulebook, that we call the Book of Discipline, advises against. You see, there he smoked and he drank and he bought weapons and he gambled, and get this, he even bet against the Eagles clinching the division and winning the number 1 seed in the NFC. Can you imagine? The trouble was he had too much fun, or at least too much fun too fast. Pretty soon it all caught up with him, and his credit card was declined. He really shouldn't have bet against those Eagles. So now, in a place of desperation, he realized that he had nothing and he needed something. So what he did is he said, well, I'm here and there's plenty of help wanted signs. You know what? I'll just get a job in one of these places where I've been having a lot of fun. And you would have thought that that would have brought him great joy to still be in that place, but it's hard to go from this place of a high roller to serving in that fashion. And as he was working there, completely humiliated because of how far he had fallen, he got an idea. And this idea could either go beautifully right or horribly wrong. You see, he remembered his father's business. He remembered just how good he used to have it, and even he remembered just how well even the lowest people in his father's organization had it. So he decided to pack up and to get back to his father's household and his father's business. You see, his idea was going to be that maybe, just maybe, if I could start off on the lowest level, maybe not even just start there, but maybe just finish there, maybe just stay there, maybe just be content with being the lowest of the low in my father's organization. Surely, that would be better than doing what I'm doing right now. So he packed up his stuff and he left. And he knew that this was his last chance. He knew that he might not even have any chance, but if he was going to have one more chance, it was going to happen right now. And so he rehearsed. He rehearsed what he was going to say. He practiced the entire journey. Father, I have hurt you, and I've hurt my brother. I don't know if you could ever forgive me, but if you could, I would love the opportunity to work hard for you. You don't have to consider me your son any longer. Just consider me one of your workers. Heck, even just consider me a temporary employee of your business. And as he's rehearsing and practicing and rehearsing exactly what he's about to say to his dad, he gets interrupted by an unexpected greeter. You see, that father, that one that he once had wished was dead, see, this whole time he had been sitting by the window, waiting and wondering. We should have known, because he loved his son so much that he was willing to comply with his outrageous demand. And so he'd been spending all of his days there by the window, peering out, just wondering what his son was doing. Oh, he had heard the rumors. Yeah, word was getting around town. He had heard from family and friends and neighbors and even well-intending church members about what his son was up to. But as he sat there by the window, waiting and wondering, he saw something, someone wondering up the driveway. And he ran down, no time for throwing on a coat and shoes, even though it's the middle of winter. And he went out to greet that disrespectful, dishonest, ungrateful, good-for-nothing, you fill in the blank, son of his. But here's the real shocker. Here's the real shocker of this entire story. He threw his arms around him. And he talked over him as his son began to give his apology. And he said, you need a party. You need a new suit. You need to have your favorite food and drink prepared for you. This is what you need. And so what we see as this son was desiring to make this comeback is that comebacks begin with desire. Before there's any other sort of change that can happen, before there's any sort of acceptance or repentance or anything else like that can happen, comebacks begin with desire. They begin with the simple desire for more. They begin with that simple realization that life is more than what we're experiencing right now. They recognize that life can be more, that there is more out there for us, and they begin there. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough to get the ball rolling. And so, the plans began for this big party, and it commenced just as soon as it possibly could. Happy ending, the end, right? Wrong. See, don't you remember that there was another son in this story? There was an older one. Remember that good one? The one that was always there, the one that never strayed away, the one that never ever did anything wrong. He was there the entire time. Where is he in this story? Well, he's at work, because remember, he's supposed to be the good one. But while he's out working at his dad's business, he starts to hear something going on. And whenever he hears all of this commotion, he has to come in and see what's the matter. And as he does, he's shocked. It's as if he sees a ghost, because his younger brother was dead, but now he's alive. And he's right there. But even more shockingly than him being there is how he's being treated. You see, he is being celebrated. So the brothers don't talk to each other, but the older one goes straight to his dad and starts to just lay into him like he's never, ever done before. He says, Dad, I've never done anything wrong to you, and yet I've never received anything like this. This son has done everything wrong to you, and this is how you repay him? And so the father and the son argue. They go back and forth. You see, the father just can't understand why his older son can't be happy for his younger brother. And the older son just can't understand why his dad is happy that his younger son has returned. And so they'll go back and forth, and they argue, with no resolution in sight, realizing that it's not going anywhere, realizing that the main course is growing cold. The father goes back inside, and the older brother is left outside to determine what in the world he is going to do in light of this radical act of hospitality and forgiveness and grace that his father has just offered to his disrespectful, ungrateful, good-for-nothing, you fill in the blank, younger brother, who was just trying to make a comeback. I don't know if you've ever been in that place. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those dark moments whenever you didn't know what else to do, whenever you had no sense of purpose in your life, whenever you had fallen so far, whenever you had a change that you knew that you needed to make and you had no idea where to go with that. I'm not sure if you've ever been in that place, but it all begins with desire. And so sometimes in those moments, whenever we don't know where else to go, we can simply go to God. I know that in the darkest moment in my life, whenever I felt like there was absolutely no purpose and no meaning to anything, all I could do is I could echo the words of the psalmist, because I knew that I desired God more than anything else. As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? Sometimes that's all we need in order to make a comeback. Just that deep, deep desire. It's enough. It's enough. So, do you desire a comeback? Do you see something in your life that is just not quite right? Do you see something in your life that you know could amount to more? Begin with a desire. How much do you want it? How much do you want to see that change happen? How much do you want to be transformed into the person that God knows that you can be? It could be something that's big. It could be something that's small. But it's got to begin there with the desire, the desire to put aside everything else and do the work, no matter how hard it might be, no matter how long it might take, no matter what, in order for you to see your victory. But guess what? Guess what? We have a God of the comeback. Because you see that father in that story? You're smart people, so you already know this. But that father in the story is God. See, God is the one who runs to us whenever we are only inching closer to him. God is the one who throws his arms open wide whenever we take that first step back to him, to his ways, to everything that he wants for us. So, today is Baptism of the Lord Sunday. And we're going to have an opportunity in just a moment, if you want to reaffirm the baptism that maybe you went through a very long time ago. Maybe not so long ago, but for a lot of us, it's probably been a very, very long time ago. It's good from time to time to remember what God has done for us. And so in a moment, Eric's going to start to play, and you're welcome to come forward to the waters. It's going to be self-serve. You can gaze upon the waters. You can take some water in your hand. You can drizzle it over your head. You can touch the cool water to your face. And just be reminded of the words spoken to Jesus at his baptism, that they are being spoken to us constantly, that you are my child, whom I dearly love. I find happiness in you. These are the words that God is speaking to each and every single one of us as we look fondly on the act of God calling us in as one of his children. And if you've never been baptized before, or you just want a grander rededication than this, let's talk after this. We can certainly make that happen. But for right now, the waters are open as you start with desire in making your comeback.